All right, let's dive into drainage fittings. Drainage fittings are probably one of the hardest parts of plumbing. For some reason, code requirements have requirements that you need to put in certain fittings in certain spots, and they have to run certain ways and be turned certain ways. But first we got to get the materials. So let me go over some of these fittings that I got here, kind of show you what you should get when you go get your materials. It seems hard, but it's actually pretty simple in the fact that if you just remember that everything below the flood level rim of a fixture, so that would be a sink, a toilet, tub, any of those, wherever it would overflow the flood level rim, anything below that should be a drainage fitting. Let me show you what drainage fittings are. So we've got a Y, that's a drainage fitting. We've got a combination. So anyways, I call it a combo. These things are great. They're my favorite. And then we've got double fixture fitting right here. So maybe you have two sinks, maybe in a bathroom, double sinks. You're going to run both off of this into one drain line and a vent out the top. You'll notice though, which will take me to my next fitting, how these right here flow down. Well, if you come across, maybe if you can imagine this as a double, see how that sits there? If there was another one coming out the other side, that would be what they call like a cross, and you would not want to use that. That would be more for like a vent application. You want to use this because it forces the flow to come down. Okay, so if you're doing any type of double fixture that you're tying into one drain line, definitely use this. So this would be a sanitary tee. Sanitary tees can get you in, they're often used all the time, but they can also get you in trouble in a drainage situation. So if you're using drainage fittings, this is a drainage fitting in the vertical position. The second that you turn it on its back like this, you turn it on its bottom, they call it on its back, then it should not be used except for in a vent situation above the flood level rim. Always want to use it in a vertical position. You can use it underground in a vertical position, and 45 degrees is considered vertical. Anything from 45 all the way straight up is considered vertical. But as soon as you get on your back, it's not. And then you can end up with issues of clogging if this ever backs up. That's why they want like a Y or the combo like I was talking about. You want to use those fittings so that it's easy to clean out. If you ever have to run a snake down there, it just cleans out better. So keep that in mind. These fittings are used all the time, but usually only used for like, you know, where a sink drain line would come into it, or if you've got multiple drain lines in a vertical situation coming together and going from horizontal to vertical, that's where you would use these. Get into 90s, you're going to be turning corners. For drainage fittings, stick with the long or mid-turn 90s. Stay away from the sharp turn 90s. You only want to use those in vent situations. So these right here are perfect for when you're doing any drainage fitting work. Anything below the flood level rim, stick with these. And for myself, I buy only drainage fittings. It just keeps me out of trouble. Sometimes I know you're in a tight spot or you may not be able to get it to work. Just try to look for a different way to use a long turn 90, not a sharp turn. So this would be like a sharp turn 90. And if you can imagine, if this thing ever backs up, how hard it would be to get whatever stuck in there out, right? So just try to stay away from these. Like I said, I don't even buy them unless I have to. When you go to the store, if you can't find what you need, I would recommend not putting the wrong thing in. I would go to another store. That's all. So we also have, so let's say you're transitioning from, say you're using ABS. And you're transitioning to an existing cast iron or existing some other pipe, right? Use what they call a rubber fitting, a rubber coupling, and we recommend using a banded one. So this would be like a shielded coupling. And that way you've got these extra connections, you've got a good solid by having the shield on there. It kind of holds everything nice and tight. Sometimes you're going to transition from, say, a 3-inch to a 4-inch and you can't have a shield. That's fine. We just say use it if you can. That's all. So this would be the transition that you would want to use. I would not recommend using transition glue, even if you're going from ABS to PVC. At least where I work, in the city that I work in, they don't allow transition glue inside. So you wouldn't be able to go from, say, ABS to PVC. We'd want you to pick one material and stick with it. And I would recommend that throughout. It's just easier to use, right? So, but there are situations where you're transitioning to an existing material and you need something. This is what you would probably want to use. Now, you dive into glue. So, as an inspector, one of the biggest things that I've had to call, it just sucks for homeowners, is they didn't get the right glue. So they went and they bought ABS, which is this, but then they bought PVC glue and they put it all together. And we show up and we look at it and we're like, that doesn't work. So we got to tear it out and make it right. And then on the other side, if you're using PVC, so say you're using PVC, but then you've got a glue that requires a primer, but you didn't put the primer in. Well, the glue says that you have to have the primer. So just make sure if you're using PVC, you get the glue that does or doesn't require it. And if it does, just make sure to get it. Put the primer on, put your glue on, glue them together. Just make sure you follow the installation instructions for that glue. Some glues don't require it, but it is something that I've caught homeowners on, and it's no fun because they didn't know. They just didn't catch the fact that on the shelf this said ABS and they put in PVC pipe. So just make sure you got the right stuff. That's all. We'll hop into Cleanouts. So right here is Cleanouts. I highly recommend putting in Cleanouts. So I would pick up a couple when you're at the store. I will do a little video on just Cleanouts so you kind of have an idea of their importance. Not the end of the world in a residential situation, more of a do-it-yourself situation. But if you got a spot for them, I'll tell you what, they'll definitely save you some heartache down the road for a couple fittings. So anyways, that would kind of cover drainage fittings, what I would pick up when you go to the store. You also want to pick up nail plates while you're there, and then we'll dive into testing gear and stuff down the road in a different video. But just think about that as well. You might need to pick up and think about how you're going to test your pipe. And then I'll dive into pipe sizing when we get into like groundwork and everything. But just understanding drainage fittings is huge, because we get tons of people that put in sanitary tees on their back all the time. And we have to make that call. So they have to go in and cut it out, and then they got to couple it together and figure out how to make it work. So if you just stay away from those, at least in the horizontal position, and stick with your wyes and your combos, you'll be good to go. Alrighty, okay, on to the next.